Welcome into the Toyota Lounge, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships. This is the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We have all four back on the show.
I'm sorry. Legends and Elephants is so funny.
It's also accurate.
That was funny.
So, all four of us back on the show, kind of. Megan been traveling all over the country at this point. But you may or may not be aware that we talked to the great one himself, Wayne Gretzky, about the Colorado Avalanche. We did do that the other day, and we have a...
Just a quick... This was recorded after Game 2.
Yep.
So when he references Val Nichushkin, we'll just slide by that.
Yikes.
Because obviously none of us knew what was to come.
Yep. Which is something we will talk about later in the show as well. So if you're here for that, we'll get to that as well. Still a pretty cool thing that we got to talk to Wayne Gretzky. Let's hear what the great one had to say about the Avs. All right, the DNVR Avalanche Podcast has a very special guest. Now we are joined by the great one himself, Wayne Gretzky. First of all, Wayne, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it a ton.
My pleasure.
Obviously, we're an Avs podcast. You take a look at this Avs team. I don't want to go so far as to say they were anywhere near those unbelievable Oilers teams you played for, but do you see a little bit of shades of a potential dynasty of the modern era in this Avalanche team?
Yeah, no question about it. They are such an elite team. They're winning. More importantly, they're a fun team to watch. They bring the fans out of their seats each and every night. As a team, they play unselfishly, and as individuals, you look at some of their guys; they're just truly Hall of Famers already, and they're got a lot more years left in their careers, and they've already won one championship. And I think that, listen, the salary cap era is hard, and Kadri was such an important part of that team 2 years ago when they won. And I don't know if they could ever fill that hole last year. And it seems like this year, if they give up a good young defenseman, but they got a guy now that's fitting in nicely. Looks like they have a little bit more depth. And the big Russian, I don't think played last year in the playoffs. He's playing phenomenal right now. So I think their team is as good this year as they've ever been. And they're playing with a great deal of confidence. I mean, they almost came back again last night, which would have been incredible. To come back road wins. It's pretty hard to do in this day and age. But like you said, they're a fun team to watch. And more importantly, they're unselfish and they play hard. I'm always amazed because it looks like McKinnon and Makar don't get tired. It looks like they could run a marathon after playing 28 minutes a night. If you look at them on the bench, they're really not huffing and puffing. I don't know how they do it. It's pretty interesting to watch because they're specimens, that's for sure.
Speaking of Cale Makar, you played with a pretty good one in Paul Coffey in your day. Yeah. When you see Cale Makar chasing down some of these early career accolades and all the Norris Trophy nominations, do you think that when it's all said and done, Makar could be in the kind of class of all-time defensemen as a Paul Coffey?
No question. You guys are around him more than I am, and you guys get to watch him live more than I do. But he's got all the intangibles. He's big, he's fast, he's tough, he sees the ice, he's great defensively, he's hard to play against, plays unselfish. There's no question. And that's the great thing about sports, right? We sit around and we want to compare who's better, who's more important, all those kind of things, who's the best team. But Makar's going to write his own history. He's going to go down as one of the great defensemen that ever played our game. There's absolutely no question in my mind that that's going to happen by the time his career is over.
I got to ask, I mean, obviously they announced it last week with the Hart nominations, and right. You've won it 9 times, which is, okay, I guess. I mean, it's okay. You don't like to brag, but it's something unbelievable. But here in the market, Nate McKinnon, he's never won it, been nominated a couple times. Everybody in this market believes that this is his year. As we all know, Matthews, McDavid, Kucherov, everybody's been so good. But is there some, and I'm not asking you who you're picking, I'm saying, like, what an honor it was for you to win. I know you're all about winning Stanley Cups, but what's the difference about an individual honor like the Hart Trophy?
Well, listen, the greatest trophy is the Stanley Cup. And then after you go from there, if you're a rookie, winning Rookie of the Year means the world to a young guy. But I think the Hart Trophy is the creme de la creme as far as individual awards go. And look, you said it best. People in Colorado, they believe Nate MacKinnon deserves it, and they're right to say that. If you go into Edmonton, the people in Edmonton are going to say, hey, we wouldn't be the same team without Connor McDavid. And they're allowed to say that. And now, if you go in Florida here in Tampa Bay, all you hear about is Kucherov and the 100 assists he had and how great of a player, and he was in 50% of the scoring of their entire team. So I don't know. It's going to come down to how many people voted for Matthews, because he seems to be fourth on that list. And I think if Matthews gets a lot of votes, he's going to take some votes away from Kucherov. Does that help MacKinnon or McDavid? I don't know. This is a coin toss. I wouldn't want to sit here and say who's going to win it, but all three guys who are nominated definitely deserve it. They've had great years and great players. And look, Austin Matthews had as good a year as anybody's had in the last 15 or 20 years, and he didn't even get into the top three. So that's how good those top three guys played all season long. So good for them, well deserved.
Do you, when you look back on your career, do you have a greater appreciation for winning the MVPs now that you've had some time to look back and reflect on it versus in the moment when you're focused more on the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, you kind of just focused on the Stanley Cup, and as Eric will tell you, it's no fun losing. It's no fun not being on a team that's competitive each and every year, and that's what it's really all about. If you can be good enough to play with good players, you're going to get those nominations. And as I said, I played with great players. You don't do it as an individual in this sport. And Nate MacKinnon will tell you that about his team, and Connor will tell you that about the Oilers. You got to have good players around you to get those kind of nominations, because one guy can't do it by himself. It's just too hard of a game. There's too many good players. And as you guys know, the game gets better every 10 years. It's better today than it was in 2000. It was better in 2000 than it was in 1980. And 20 years from now, they're going to go, wow, look how much bigger we are today. Look how much faster we are than the guys who played in 2024. That's what's going to happen.
Not just a great player, but you're a great leader everywhere you went. The Avs situation, Gabe Landeskog, their captain, obviously has not been on the ice for a couple of years. How do you see that leadership core of MacKinnon and Makar kind of stepping up in a situation like that vocally?
Yeah, it's really amazing. Landeskog is one of the best players in the game as far as he's important to his team. He's an unselfish guy. He's their captain. Are they as good a team without him? Probably not. He was so important to their team. And consequently, losing him last year and Kadri, two guys that were part of winning the Stanley Cup, those guys are hard to replace. So you need guys like MacKinnon and Makar to step up. And, as you guys, you're around those kids. They're good kids. They work hard. They're unselfish. They love to play. They love being in Colorado. I will tell you, though, I had dinner with Nathan around Christmas time in St. Louis when the Avs were in town to play the Blues. And I don't know if I've seen a hockey player eat as much as he did that night, the night before a game. Maybe that's why he doesn't get tired. He's got all those calories and getting ready so he can skate for 28 minutes. But you know what? As you guys know, they're good kids, and they deserve all the accolades they're getting. And listen, they've been fun to watch this year in the playoffs. All the playoff games have been fun to watch, but they're especially unique to watch because you don't know if they're going to win 7-6 or lose 7-6. So you're going to be entertained the whole game. That's the good thing about watching the Avs.
Oh, go ahead.
How about it?
No, I just when I go back to the Avalanche, we were so lucky here. We call it Avalanche 1.0. We're talking about my dad's old years with Joe and Peter and Patrick, and so fortunate here in town to have all those superstars. And then we call this Avalanche 2.0 right now, and we're so lucky. And I just want you to touch a little bit on the pressure that I always compare myself, obviously being a bottom of the lineup guy. And I always tell those guys and the people on the pod, like, it's so different for those top end guys to produce night in and night out. And the ones that do are the greatest ones. And you remember them, like we're talking about Joe and Peter and yourself, obviously, but talking about Avalanche wise. So how do you deal with that kind of pressure night in and night out? And I think it's a fuel, but I'm just asking you.
Yeah. Well, listen, a couple things. Let me say this first. Your dad changed the face and the culture of the franchise when he traded and got Patrick Waugh, and that just seemed to stabilize the entire group because they were more of an offensive-minded team with Joe and Peter. But I think it comes from a love and a passion of the game. I just think that if you love to play each and every night, you want to become better every single game and every night you play. I don't think you look in the mirror and worry about the pressure of it or, I got to get 2 goals tonight. I just think the love of the game, and you guys were around Joe and Peter, they just love to play. They get on the ice, they played hard, they practiced hard, they prepared hard. Consequently, you become champions. And I think that's as simple as that. A great announcer of ours in Canada, Bob Cole, just passed away a couple of weeks ago. And somebody asked me what made him so special. And I said, listen, there's a lot of great play-by-play announcers, a lot of great color commentators, but Bob Cole had a passion and a love for what he did. And he brought it to work every single day till he was about 83 when he retired. So you see that with good players. You see that with Nate. You see that with Makar. You see that with McDavid and Draisaitl. They just love to compete. They just play hard every night. And I don't think they look at it and say, you know what, I got so much pressure on me. I got to play well tonight. I just think they go, you know what, this is where I want to be, and I'm going to enjoy this, and I'm going to play the best I can play tonight.
You own a ridiculous amount of NHL records. Obviously, around the league, when anyone gets close, it's a big deal. Everyone starts tracking whether the bigger ones, like an Ovechkin goal total, obviously everyone knows about. But do you pay attention to some of the smaller ones? Like Nathan McKinnon had that home point streak for 37, 38 games this year, getting pretty close to you. Did those things get you excited, or do you just not think about the records all that much?
Well, listen, I think any record you have in the NHL is a privilege because there's so many great teams and so many great players. And has the game changed over 50 years? Of course it has. It's a different style game today. I wasn't even aware that I had 40 games in a row with a point at home until Nate got to about 30, 31 and people started talking about it. And then just matter of factly, I asked somebody, I said, well, what year did I do that in Edmonton? They said, no, you did it in LA. I didn't even know I did it in LA.
That's right. That's right. I was shocked too.
I was, that kind of surprised me, but I actually texted him around game 33, 34, and I said, listen, I'm wishing you all the best of luck to break the record. And maybe I sent some bad mojo because I think it was 2 games later, he didn't get a point, but I was pulling for him. It's great for the game. And that was the one record I could say, you know what, maybe 2 of us could share the record because he gets to play 41 home games. I only had 40.
Go ahead. Yeah. You good?
All you, Doug.
Well, you listen, it was a privilege to have you here. And I just want to, I tell all the time, it was a privilege for me to play with you for parts of 3 seasons. And one of the coolest, you're talking about passion, one of the coolest moments in my career. I didn't win that Stanley Cup. I got my last name on it twice, but just with the wrong first name, which is fine. It stays in the family. But one of the coolest moments for me was your last game, right? And not only the last game, but it was the last week. And I remember the last practice, and I got a nice picture there from, I think that was our last practice there. And we were doing Mucks had us doing down and backs for your last practice. And it was just like, oh my God.
I knew he was going to do that too.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? And for me, I just tell people all the time, I was fortunate enough to play in this league. And obviously, people always ask you hey, who was some of your, the best players you ever played with? Sure. I mean, you're at the top of the list for me. And I'm not biased. It's just the records speak for themselves. But for me, I always tell people, and again, I'm going to give you flowers here, and I mean it. For me, Wayne was the best teammate I've ever played with. And people are like, no, I asked you who was the best player. And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm giving you the best teammate I've ever played with. You made everybody feel so good, whether you're a superstar on the team or, a backup goalie. And for me, I take that with me. I try to bring that with me in my everyday life. And I'll tell you one thing, it was an honor and a privilege to be with you. And boy, oh boy, we, I look back and I was fortunate. So I just want to say thank you for being the best teammate ever to play with me. Not the best player, the best teammate. So.
Well, thanks for the kind words. And it was a pleasure to be on with you guys today. And listen, I love watching hockey, and there's not a team that's more fun to watch. Maybe the Oilers and the Avs. They're fun to watch because they go, and I love that kind of hockey. So I'm wishing you guys all the best of luck, and thanks for letting me be on the show.
Thank you again so much. Yeah,
appreciate the time.
So the great one, at least having some fun watching the Avs, even if their last couple games after that haven't gone the best, but still pretty cool to see Wade on the podcast.
Nobody in the world can predict the future.
Nope. It's impossible. An impossible task all the way around. There's no doubt about that. On that note, we are presented by Toyota. Right now, your Front Range Toyota stores are offering you a chance to be a winner as the Avalanche strive for 16 wins. It's on the brink, but they can still pick up some more wins. They can still do the thing, in theory. Toyota's Drive to 16 promotion will have 16 of you winning a pair of tickets to the Avs playoff game or an Avalanche Playoffs tumbler. Don't miss the opportunity to win playoff tickets. Use that QR code on screen right now or the link in the description of the show to get yourself signed up. Toyota, of course, a proud sponsor of the Colorado Avalanche and the official vehicle of DNVR, with a ton of different options for you to choose from when it comes to Toyota vehicles, ranging from their trucks all the way down to their tiny sedans and everything in between. So go get with Toyota at your Front Range Toyota stores in a location near you, including Auto Nation Toyota, Arapahoe, and Centennial, Corbin Toyota, and Boulder, Groove Toyota, and Littleton, Mountain States Toyota, and Denver, Stevenson Toyota, Oida, East and Aurora, Stevenson Toyota, West in Lakewood. We're also brought to you by the fantastic folks down at Circa Resorts and Casinos. You can take the playoff plunge today while the Avs are still in the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe they won't be in the playoffs tomorrow, and you can take the post-playoff plunge. Circa, a great place to stay for perhaps the NHL draft. You can go hang out there or then go down to the Sphere to experience that.
Say hi to all of us.
Yeah, exactly. We'll all be there. So it's going to be a great time. Make sure when you book your stay with Circa that you use code DNVR20 at circasports.com to get 20% off your stay. They have over 500 rooms with tons of different layouts and designs for you to choose from. So something for everyone. Obviously, Stadium Swim is amazing, and they even have a 3-story sports book as well as over 7,000 square feet of casino space. So use that DNVR20 code and get 20% off at circasports.com. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a jarring left turn from enjoyable conversations with Wayne Gretzky.
Whiplash.
Obviously, the Avalanche are sitting down 3-1 in a playoff series and just lost Val Nichushkin to entering Stage 3 of the Player Assistance Program, which will have him suspended for 6 months. A couple of things I do want to say right off the top before we get into this conversation. Number one, Val is a human being, no matter what. And certainly, speaking for myself, wish nothing but the best for him as a person. I hope that he can get the help that he needs and go on to continue living a normal life, whatever he needs to get that done in the first place. Number two, I'm not a doctor. As far as I know, none of us are doctors.
Actually, I've been hiding this
entire
time.
This whole time,
Yeah, no,
he's been a doctor.
None of us are doctors.
And the reality of that conversation means on the medical side of this, on whatever you want to talk about as far as that is concerned, our knowledge only goes so far. So certainly on that side of things, take it with a grain of salt. And again, the most important thing is that Val can get healthy. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to add on that side or if we should get into the more hockey side of it with Val.
Honestly, I really want to know what Megan has to say. She is the most emotionally intelligent of us and certainly the most thoughtful from a human side. And the three of us kind of touched a bit on it last night. So, Megan, genuinely, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about it.
I think what I've most been asked about is how the team feels. And I obviously can't speak for the team. And I think what I want to acknowledge are the many layers to the situation, because even going around the locker room after Game 4, there's a range of reactions that you pick up on in tone. You look at Jack Johnson's comments alongside Andrew Cogliano's, and they lean a little more businesslike. I think maybe even critical is a word I would use alongside it.
Yep.
you hear Drouin talk about it on the flip side, and it's laced with a little bit more sympathy. And that could just be having dealt with some of his own demons in the past. There's a lack of, there is compassion for the situation that he's in. And so it's hard to put in one sentence how the team is feeling about this, because there's a range of reactions, but it was deflating. And the reality is that first period, the team was shell-shocked. And you're kidding yourself if you don't acknowledge the human component of the team as well, that they're also human beings, and they were dealt an incredibly difficult piece of news hours before puck drop. They lose Devon Toews. In addition to that, that packs an emotional gut punch that I know they won't make excuses for, but I think it is fair to acknowledge that. And the other part of it too is they also have inner knowing about the situation that none of us have. Mm-hmm. And I think that grants them then some benefit of the doubt that if Jack Johnson seems pretty critical of Val Nichushkin, like he made his choice, it's the words that he used, it's not fair for me to assign negative or positive value to that, because the whole team is going to have insight to the situation that I can't speak to. And I think what we can speak to is knowing that this is something that Val Nichushkin has been struggling with for some time. And it's something that I believe the team has worked with him privately to get help with. And it reached a boiling point in season where even though he enters the program voluntarily, there's nudging for him to get that care. Yeah. And so when it reaches this point where it's not voluntary, he has broken the rules of the program and will face suspension as a result of it, there's a lot more behind the scenes adding to that disappointment that makes it hard for us to talk about as media, because we don't have that view of it. And it's overall pretty multidimensional. You know, I don't want to gloss over the fact that I use the word choice when I'm quoting what Jack Johnson said, that he made his choice. And I think everybody here knows that choice comes with an asterisk by it when it comes to addiction, that you are talking about choice, but not as we ordinarily understand what choice means. There's a component of this that is involuntary and really difficult for the individual that's struggling with addiction. And I think at the top of what you just said, Rudo, you acknowledged that really well, that it's hard to talk about what's happened with Val Nichushkin because there's a component of maybe he hasn't taken enough ownership of the situation, but maybe he didn't feel like he could. And I think that the letdown is there has been a lot of support from the team around him all season. They've been rooting for him, and he let them down. And I think anybody that's feeling disappointed in it from a fan perspective is righteous in feeling disappointed. I don't want to shame anybody for feeling disappointment, and caution anyone that's feeling disappointment from letting that bleed into the human component too. Like, I think it's okay to have feelings about your sports team letting you down. And acknowledge that Val Nichushkin is a human being that's going through something that I don't think any of us will ever fully understand.
Yeah.
I think I'm angry because it feels like a year ago we went through this where it was nearly 100% compassion and empathy. And in January, again, it was, look, the guy is battling something. You're trying to do it. You're trying to do right. You want to care about him. And you do. You care about the person. And I said this on the postgame pod last night. If you don't have any care about the person or the people that are on your sports teams, it's a pretty craven way to go about it. Yeah. And we know that the organization has worked so hard over the last year to try to support him and help him. And my anger is about them and not about Val so much. My anger is about Zach Parise coming out of his retirement at midseason and leaving the family and choosing the team that he wanted to go to and saying, I'm picking this team. because they're built for this. I'm not going out there to get another paycheck. I'm not going out there for anything other than to chase this thing right here. Chase a Stanley Cup, something he's never won. And he chose Colorado for reasons. And certainly the play of Val Nichushkin and what he provides as a hockey player is involved in that. The Avalanche are a different team when he's on the ice versus not on the ice. And my anger is about Zach Parise. My anger is about the people that we all have relationships within the organization. People that kill themselves for, probably wrong phrasing. People that work extremely hard, dedicate and sacrifice everything that they've got to try to win a Stanley Cup. It's a common goal that you cannot win without a ton of people moving in the right direction, pulling the rope in the right direction. And you have all these people that are trying to do the right things. And it feels like all of it got sabotaged right before puck drop of a pretty important playoff game. And so my anger is about that. My anger is about the timing. My anger is about all of the people whose hard work gets betrayed by how this happens. And at the same time, I am sick for Val Nichushkin and his family. Look, it's not the same thing. I've been pretty open that I'm bipolar. Addiction is similar in that you wake up every day and you fight a battle. And there are days you win and days you lose. It's an everyday thing, and you have to be fully committed to it. And I empathize a lot with the pain and the shame that he and the guilt that he is going through right now. And I'm just wired this way. I'm always going to think about the person involved and their life. But there is another component to this. He is signed by an organization, and the organization has a lot of people that are trying to work together to accomplish a goal.
Yep.
And it might have all gotten submarined yesterday. And you just, it's just incredibly disappointing. Yep. And it's genuinely, it's painful. I know we were talking, we aren't exactly sleep merchants over here, but when the two of us are having a conversation and saying,
I'm becoming you guys now. So.
Like when the two of us are having a conversation and we're like, we didn't sleep a lot last night.
Yeah.
Because it bothers.
Yep.
It just sits with you. The emotional investment that we put into the organization, that all of you that are sitting here put into the organization every day to care about the team.
Yep.
You care about the players. We get interviews with players, and Megan does an unbelievable job of bringing out who the players are as people. You do all that because it's connection. You feel that connection as a human being. You feel that connection. You feel closer to the players. You feel closer to the organization. And on it, when last night happens, it's brutal. It's disappointing. It's painful. It's angering. It's all of them at the same time. It does not have to be one or the other. It's all of them. Yep. And you can absolutely have serious conversations about is the league set up to really help a guy like Val Nichushkin? Is the player assistance program really set up for that? It's clearly set up to help somebody like Sam Girard.
Sure.
I need help. Give me resources. Gets help. Puts in the work. And for the moment, it's working. We don't know what the future holds. But a guy like Val Nichushkin, who's really going through it right now, we can have those conversations, But we need to completely separate the conversation of how the league approaches addiction, which, as we all know, is a real problem within the NHL.
Yep.
And what an NHL organization needs to do moving forward. We are always talking about how this team can win a Stanley Cup.
Yep.
What it needs to do. It's just, it is vital that we separate those into two conversations.
Agreed.
And that we accept that just because we talk about one, we do not acknowledge that the other is important and exists. And those conversations need to happen.
Agreed.
You have to have them both to be successful.
Here's what I'll add to it, because we talked about it at length last night, but I like all three way to express their feelings on the situation, right? I'll add the same thing about addiction. Nobody's taken addiction lightly, but with addiction, there's consequences, right? You know, and whether it's your husband, your wife, or your kids, or right, your employer. So I think it's okay to feel for Val, right? Like you're saying right there, because you have to, as a human being. I think you feel for him, right? I mean, that's if you're not, then it's a little weird. You know, I mean, I don't know what the word is, but it's a little. You have to feel for the guy. You know what I mean? And I think we all feel for the guy.
It's the first and foremost most important thing.
That's my point. You led with that, and then I'm going with Megan and what you said, and I think I agree with that. But unfortunately, with addiction, there's consequences, and the consequences now for that is the team we cover, right? The team that we, or some guys play for, the team that some guys manage for, the team that some people are fans of, and that's where the consequences are. He's obviously got consequences with his own family, and that's where we wish the best to his family. What we're talking about here on this show, it leads to consequences. And here's what I'll say. For example, the profession he's in is a team sport.
Yeah.
It is not an individual sport. So if he's a golfer or a tennis player, it's different, because it's the same part on what I said, the first part that we've all been talking about, but it doesn't affect his team. Doesn't have a team. It's an individual sport. This is a team sport, and that's where the consequences go. And like Megan said, some will be more on react to it. You're going to have 25 guys. Put everybody in there, trainers, coaches. You got 35 guys that will react to it differently. They'll react to it with anger. They'll react to it with sympathy. They'll react to them. And I think you're going through the process, right? And then he's going to go through his process too. But unfortunately, the consequences of this bleeds into a team sport that we're covering here, like today, that we're talking about. And that's what makes it hard, and I think somebody said yesterday, I think Bedsy said it, like, hey, there's more to hockey than is life.
It's not life and death.
Yeah. But it's not life and death. But when you're talking about the situation of hockey itself, it is a big blow, like you just said, correct? Right? And that's where I don't think it's being insensitive to talk about the blow, because we're saying forget about, like Rudo said it right away, right off the bat, like, hey, first and foremost, it's about the person. And but unfortunately, and that's why I use the word consequences, it will bleed into, like, okay, what does that mean for this team? You know what I mean? And we'll get to talk about it, and sure enough, it did bleed into their start yesterday, 100%.
No doubt about it.
But like we said, it's not that important on the big picture. But on the small picture of the game itself, it was a weird start for those reasons. I mean, that's reality.
It's certainly tough from the Avalanche perspective of things, because as a team, what do you do? And like, obviously, number one, you get him as much help as you possibly can. I think the Avs have done their best with that. And then you're talking about a guy from a purely hockey perspective, from a purely, this is the NHL's perspective. Again, I understand Val Nichushkin has issues that he needs to work through and hopefully can work through. But if you're looking at that team aspect of it, this is now a guy who has let you down in this fashion for a third time.
in 12 months.
Yeah, it was 385 days or something. Yeah. It's tough.
And it's a cry for help.
For sure.
Val Nichushkin needed to get some help. And obviously it wasn't glaringly obvious to us, but this is a wake-up call that this was, I think, Eric, you might have even said it off air, but like, this is bigger than hockey. Maybe hockey isn't right for Val Nichushkin, at least right now. Val Nichushkin, the person, has no business being in the NHL right now because he needs help.
Yep. The protocols of the NHL mean that he's suspended for at minimum the next 6 months.
Yeah, with no guarantee that 6 months is when he is eligible for reinstatement. It doesn't mean that on the 6-month anniversary, the NHL comes in and goes, let's try it again, big fella.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that's going to happen in those 6 months. And genuinely, I don't think any of the four of us right here, sitting here right now, really know what's going to happen with him that time. From a personal standpoint, certainly, to what are the steps of the program, to what do the Avalanche do? All of it is up in the air, and
this is genuinely new territory for the NHL.
It is.
No one has ever entered Stage 3 before, so we do not have heart. Unless you work for the NHL office in their player assistance program, I don't think you have any idea what's next, ourselves included. We'll see.
Yeah.
Again, wishing nothing but health for Nichushkin. I truly, truly hope he can get healthier and figure out his life, and whether that's returning to hockey or not, he is a person I hope can get to a better place. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on specifically with Nichushkin's side of things?
No, I think we'll get to the roster stuff on a different day.
Sure.
We'll talk about what it means for the team, and honestly, we're all going to need we're going to need a little bit of clarity on just a situation that nobody seems to really have a strong grasp of it.
Yep.
I talked to two people yesterday that would know this, and I got two different answers on what the Avalanche's recourse could be here. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't feel like there's a lot of clarity moving forward. I just think we're going to have to let that one sit, and we'll get to it whenever the Avalanche offseason begins. We'll have to talk about it at some point, because his $6 million does not count against the salary cap while he's suspended. But if he's eligible to return in mid-November, you know, it creates a real timing conflict of I don't know what to do there. So,
yep.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we'll get into all the front office side of this later on.
Yep. Before we do fully move on, I do want to touch more on the Avs side. Megan, you kind of mentioned it. The Avs weren't any good in the game the other night. And while we didn't really hone in on the possible emotional impact of them being human beings in the podcast postgame, let's not kid ourselves how much this affected the Colorado Avalanche in a particularly important Game 4. I think it was pretty clear that the Avs were put in a pretty tough spot. I'll put it that way. So
they'll never tell you that.
Of course.
The closest we got was Casey Middlestat was asked today if, losing Taves and Nichushkin caused any sort of chemistry or disconnect issues. And he said, I'd probably be lying if I said it didn't. And then went on to talk about how they're professionals and they need to step up in those situations and overcome it. But I think that's the most honest we might get to the truth about how this absolutely has an impact. I personally felt that going back a game, the Avs played some of their worst hockey when Devon Taves left the game after the Jamie Benn hit. Yep. I thought that had an emotional impact on the team, seeing a leader like that leave the game after an unpenalized hit that I still don't feel great about.
And Devontae's also missing game for illness-related reasons. But
Jared Bednar confirmed it wasn't related to the hit.
Yep.
But either way, I think that had, on a smaller scale, an emotional impact on the team. And so I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we didn't acknowledge that this is a gut punch and it is a little difficult to overcome, because it had shades of the Seattle series, but the difference is we were teased with the hope of round one, seeing how good this team could be in the Winnipeg series, how good Val Nichushkin was specifically, how good their depth was, and then this glimmer of hope, like Jonathan Drouin. Imagine this lineup when he gets back in it. And it just felt like that was teased, and then the rug was pulled out from underneath them. And it just felt like the circumstances stacked atop them in a matter of hours before puck drop of an important game. Absolutely, that's going to have a little bit of an impact. Now, I also think that they're a mentally strong team, and so I do have expectation that they can work through that throughout the course of a game, but I think they lost this game in the first period, and that's why the result was what it was.
I'll just add to it. We shifting from Val, the human being, the individual, to the other guys. To that point, you got 23 guys. Not taking anything away from Val's problems, but it is also the 23 guys that are part of that team too. They're also human beings, and you go through something like that yesterday. I agree with Megan. Listen, not that guys lie to media. I'm saying that, but there's stuff that you keep close to the vest, and there's stuff that you will be public with. I've been fortunate enough to be part of this league as a player, and I went through something like this with a teammate, and trust me, we can talk about it. Like, as a team, there's a big letdown because you feel that, A, you've let your teammate down because you're a team and we look out for each other. And then there's a feeling that your teammate let you down as well. Right? I mean, that's all part of what we were talking about earlier of consequences. So it is tough when you're going into a playoff game. There's only 8 teams for that silver thing right now left. And you're down 2-1 in the series, but you're playing pretty good. And you show up at the rink yesterday, and that's what you get. It's a gut punch. I use the word like a shovel across the face. That's what you do. That's what you feel. And then you're like, and there's a lot of emotions, that going through it. And then there's a lot of emotions for the coaches. I said, put Val aside. There's a lot of emotions for the players, a lot of emotions for the coaches, a lot of emotions for management that, like AJ said earlier, I've worked hard to put this puzzle together. And yes, there's more to life than hockey, right? But we're specifically talking about this event last night, which was the hockey game.
We're also here to talk about the hockey team.
That's my point. And that's so yesterday it is a gut punch, and it is tough on the players to try to playing a game in the National Hockey League is very tough. It's very demanding. As much as we say it's just a game, it is just a game, But a lot goes into it. A lot of preparation goes into it, not just daily but yearly. And then once that, you guys make fun of me all the time, like about the starts that are different, and it throws you off. You know what I mean? Like, well, that threw you off yesterday. I don't care what they say. That's a curveball that. I don't like to refer to addiction as a curveball. I'm saying, but that process of what happened to Val threw a curveball what? It's hard, and then you got about 2 hours to reshift and refocus, and on top of it, Devontae's is not playing. He's sick, and it makes it really hard to get on the ice. And I thought yesterday, and that's why I kept saying last night, I'm shocked at the way they responded. But then I drove home last night. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, like, you know what? Think as a player right now, like, what would you have thought? And then I'm like, you know what? It had to be tough as hell. You know what I mean? To turn around and get into that game and put everything aside. So it's not important, because it is important. It is your teammate. You know what I mean? You let him down. He let you down. Whatever all the feelings, and it's not fun. And then you go out there and you get that result, and all of a sudden everything's like upside down. Then you try to regroup, and that's where they're at today.
Yep. I have to do some ad reads now because it's my job. But I just want y'all to know that I do take this whole situation seriously. And if it were up to me, I wouldn't have any ad reads on the show today. But I have a job to do. So we are brought to you by Red Hawk Roofing. Go check out a local Colorado company. When it comes to the Avs actual hockey, they certainly have some patches to fix in their roof. So make sure you go check them out. Go to redhawkroofing.com today to get a hold of them. They'll come out. They'll give you a free inspection. They'll go up on your roof. They'll take pictures. They'll show anything that is wrong up there. Hopefully nothing is wrong up there, and then you got a free inspection and know you're good to go. But if there is something wrong, they can patch it up for you quick and easy. So go get with them. Make sure you give them a call today. And even if you do have an emergency situation, Red Hawk Roofing is available 24/7. They can come out. They can at least get an emergency fix going on your roof if you do have some issues that are immediate, like leaks or things like that. So make sure you go get with them. Again, redhawkroofing.com. Another local Colorado company just like us here at DNVR. And then after you've got your roof fixed up and you don't have any serious things to worry about, go check out Dialed In Gummies. If you haven't gone over to dialedingummies.com yet today or any day, they have over 2,500 different batches created that you can go ahead and check out when you get a hold of some. Tons of different flavors. I think this one we have here, which is an ode to the Avalanche, is passion fruit and sangria. So
I thought they were smelling salts.
I know they look like a package of that, right? But
all right,
I
love it.
how stupid I am.
how
This entire time, I'm just like, cool. They got like their own branded hockey puck.
Yep, it's not a hockey book.
Never once occurring to me that that's the container.
So passion fruit and what is the flavors?
Sangria.
Ooh.
Yes. And that's one of just 2,500 unique batches that they've created. They also have one that's a shout out to Rocky, the Nuggets mascot that everybody loves.
I do love that.
Tons of different options that you can go for when you go to dialedingummies.com or visit a dispensary near you to learn more about these limited releases. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcasts. We're going to continue shifting more towards talking about the actual Avalanche hockey and going forward with them or maybe looking back at a bad game with them. Number one, Devon Toews is out for Game 4 with illness. Caleb Jones comes in.
That was rough.
It was not great. It was not great. And look, Caleb Jones doesn't even think he's playing in that game.
Yeah.
Devon Toews takes morning skate. Jones is a last-minute throw in there. And
Yeah, and as true as this is why Eric and I always talk about the value of a guy like Brad Hunt.
Sure.
A guy that at a minute's notice can jump into a lineup and feel comfortable in an NHL game. Caleb Jones got overwhelmed by that moment. Obviously, there's a lot of other things going on yesterday.
A lot of factors.
So It's not a normal situation, but Caleb Jones just did not handle the moment well last night, and that is certainly not limited to Caleb Jones. But
no, not by any
as a
stretch
guy
of the
who stepped in
imagination.
last second into a spot, he got swallowed up by it.
Yep. It's how important is it for the Avs season to stay alive, for them to get Devon Toews back for Game 5? Is it, and obviously I don't know the details of how sick he is. I don't know how close he is to coming back, but
I think he's playing Game 5.
Oh, yeah.
Bender sure made it seem.
yeah, I heard some of the interviews. I think Cale said, yeah, well, we're getting Toews back. So I'm expecting him to play, but
And then, I see on the flip side, people thought McKinnon describing like not having Val and Toews pointed to Toews still being out. That is not how I read it. I think Toews is in.
okay.
I agree.
And nothing against Caleb Jones, but you know who you're picking if you have the option.
I like Caleb Jones for what he is. I am not trying to be too hard on him. He inherited an impossible situation. And all things considered, I still think he would have made the most sense for the guy to go in there in his place because he's been with the team all season. He's been practicing with them. I think it made a lot of sense. It obviously didn't go very well.
Yep.
I wouldn't run that back if they needed to, but I'm not launching Caleb Jones into the sun because of this one performance.
Same.
There has been, look, Jack Johnson is this weird conversation around the Avs this year because in an isolated case, you can look at Jack Johnson and you say there's a couple of things that are positives for him.
Yeah.
He's old. Coaches love that shit. He plays every game. The guy's never hurt. And he just kind of gets it. What goes against him is that he has consistently made every single pairing he's been a part of worse.
Yep.
For 3 years in an Avalanche sweater.
Yep.
Has made every pairing worse. And so when you have a guy like Caleb Jones, you're in essence playing two guys that should be your 7th D. Truly and honestly should be your 7th D. You're playing two of them at the same time. So it's no shock that the Johnson-Jones pairing just isn't very good.
Yep.
And Sean Walker has limitations.
And sure, boy, he has been
He's been weird.
a weird playoff guy this year.
He has come in very high highs and very low lows.
Yeah. Yep.
Roller coastery for sure. And to your point that you were making earlier, Devon Taves is a top pairing guy for the Avs.
Yeah.
That's Caleb Jones theoretically replaces him in the lineup, but not on the top pair.
Yeah, Sean Walker replaced him in the lineup, and then you replaced Sean Walker's old spot with Caleb Jones.
Right. Which you still don't love.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of losing a top guy like that.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Despite all of these factors, you get outshot 16-2 in the first period. I can understand that you're reeling emotionally from what happened before. That's still pretty brutal hockey.
Yep.
Oh, I mean, it was, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was. And there's no way around it. And I like Bednar. No excuse, no excuse. I know that. I agree. But that's also a reality. That's why I was driving home last night. I'm like, man, I mean, because that was bad. And there's always a reason why it's bad. It's not just bad luck or, oh my God. And again, give credit to the Dallas Stars too. They were awesome. You know what? You say it all the time. Blood in the water.
Blood in the water.
I was going to take your line and give you credit for it. They had blood in the water, and they're like, you know what? They went for it. And that's what you do. You're trying to win that thing, right? But the Avalanche, I mean, it's for me, you don't even look at the game. You don't look at it. You throw it out the window because it's out the window now. You're down 3-1. Your backs are against the wall. And you got to go out there and have the biggest freaking Hart performance of the season. You know what I mean? That's what you do. You forget about the X's and O's, and you know how to play. I mean, they know how to play. These guys do an unbelievable job, those coaches, to get those guys and not to be thinking out there. And we talk about this all the time, just to react and go. And right now, tomorrow, trust your instincts and have some heart. You got to have some heart or you're done. So you can't dwell on yesterday. You can't look back and, oh, you did this wrong. And I mean, are you kidding me? Everything was wrong. First half of the game, everything was wrong. So don't even look at it. Throw it out the window. Back then we used to say throw the tape out the window. Now you can't throw computers because it's too expensive. But you can't look at it and analyze it because it wasn't the real Avalanche. There was a reason why.
I've seen Mikko spike some of those iPads, man. You might be able to throw them out the window.
You know what I mean.
I think a little destruction helps Mikko. So if he'd like
all
to.
He scored twice in that game after he broke his stick in round 1, so maybe.
What a sentence. I think destruction helps Mikko.
There's some Avs lore. Like Colleen was telling me a story about how I think he had like a 3-point night and he had smashed by accident a bottle in the parking lot and was like trying to pick up the glass at morning skate. And so it's like maybe Mikko just needs to break things is part of the lore.
They need to sabotage him so he's accidentally breaking things.
Right, like it could even be accidentally.
Yeah,
take him to one of those
give him
places.
something and grease it up so that when he picks it up, he drops it. There you go. He's breaking stuff.
Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit, actually about Mikko Rantanen.
Actually about
Who
Mikko
knows?
Rantanen.
Was Mikko even born when that song came out? Probably. He was probably a baby.
Yeah, I was going to say it had to be like right.
Yeah. Oof, tough. Look, the Avs are facing elimination, and I know most people probably don't want to hear cliches, but it's in those big moments where they become the most important. Things like you can only play the game that you're in. There literally is no tomorrow if you don't win this game. So why worry about anything down the road beyond this one?
There's a freedom in that.
Yep. Hopefully it only unlocks the Avs.
There's a lot of storylines for them to get up for. Not just the Parise, Cogliano, Jack Johnson. This could be their last go at a cup. Get them the cup.
Yep.
Jonathan Drouin draws back into this series after not having played in the playoffs, and you can see an eagerness in his play. He is upset that he couldn't have been involved from game one on, and he's excited to be a part of it. I think that there's a renewed and refreshed approach then that he has to the series that you see teased in last night's game. It feels weird saying that. They lost 5-1. They gave up a shorthanded goal due to a bad turnover on the first power play of the game. Like, it was ugly. It was really ugly. I was asked what the path to forcing this 7 games was. And there's a couple things I want to point out. One, it has bothered me that we haven't seen the best Colorado Avalanche hockey has to offer.
Yep.
A lot of Bednar post-game pressers have talked about how Dallas has a say in it too, right? Like, yes, we have to do these things. And also remember, Dallas has a say in this series too. They are making adjustments and they are going to come just as prepared as we are trying to be. Mm-hmm. And it's bothered me that Colorado hasn't had more say in that conversation, because these are two really great teams that should be more evenly matched on paper, and it just hasn't been the case. The Avs are capable of so much more. And I think their path to a Game 7 involves them remembering who they are. That includes the top guys. I think special teams is what has costed them. It's going to be difficult losing a piece like Val Nichushkin there on both PK and power play, but the top guys have more to offer the power play than we've seen. Georgiev has been battling for them in net, and I feel like he has raised his game each game. Even though 5-1 doesn't really capture that, I think that he has battled even more in games to give them a chance to fight and get back in it. It reaches a point of no return at some point, but I've liked the battle that I've seen from Georgiev. And then finally, Dallas is throwing everything they have at Colorado defensively, and it is exhausting them by the third period. If Colorado didn't trail in these games, Dallas would be so much more vulnerable than we've been led to believe.
Yep.
There is so much more that they can attack in this series.
Make them chase a game.
If they don't chase a mother freaking game. And anyways, I just think that everybody has a little bit more to give than we've seen in this series, and I'm waiting for that moment where it feels like this is Colorado Avalanche hockey.
I want to jump off that topic because objectively, Dallas has been the better team to this point in the series. Not trying to say anything like that. But when you look at this game, this series at 5-on-5, it's really been pretty darn close.
Until last night.
Until even periods 2 and 3 at 5-on-5 were fairly close. Period 1, the Avs got smoked, sure, no doubt. But the difference is the Avs are losing these games on special teams. If you look at Game 4, without special teams, the Avs were down 2-1. That's it. And like, I know you can't just do that. There are situations in the game that depend on what happens on special teams. But my point is, as bad as it has been for Colorado at times in this series, they've still found ways to be, for the most part, competitive against Dallas at 5-on-5. I'm with you. I really think they have more to give. I would love to see it. And it's now or never.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll say my answer for tomorrow's pregame. You know what I mean? If you're an Avs fan, you'll like it. You know what I mean? Because it's going to give you hope. I do. I know you guys. I do believe in this team. I do believe in what's transpired the last 24 hours could be used in a different way, in a different manner. I don't think they could have done it yesterday because it's too fresh.
Yeah.
But I do believe that you can pull something together for yourself, for your team, for Val himself too. And I am talking about him. And I we'll save that I'll save that for tomorrow pregame. And but I do feel good. So I'll give you a preview. I do feel good.
Well, if your nerves are building up, make sure you chill. Go get yourself the beer made to chill. Coors Light. Head on over to CoorsLight.com/DNVR, and you don't even have to get up off your couch. You can get it delivered right to your front door even. I can speak thanks to Instacart. Coors, obviously brewed right here in Golden, Colorado. We love them over here. You can see me drinking them on the watch-alongs and stuff like that all the time. They've got the mountains that literally turn blue on the can when it comes to Coors Light. So. Again, go over to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Make sure you let them know we sent you over there. If you are going to get some, it's the beer I reach for when I'm trying to chill. So go get yourself some. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Please party responsibly. And, of course, always reach for a Coors Light when you're trying to chill. After that, if you want a day out in the town, maybe you want to get your mind off of hockey a little bit, check out Infinity Park in Glendale and the American Raptors. You can also follow the DNVR Weekly Rugby podcast. Go check that out if you haven't. If you're a rugby fan, Colton gets all sorts of amazing interviews with everybody in the game, basically. And if you're new, there are 101 pods that you can follow to learn the sport more and get into it. The American Raptors just recently wrapped up their 6-game homestand at Infinity Park, and they're going to go play a bunch of games in South America. So they're going on the big trip. Make sure to not miss out on any of the action with the Raptors as they make a playoff push in the 2024 season. You can tune in on ESPN Plus every Saturday. For more information, you can go to AmericanRaptors.com. Looks like we have a handful of super chats to get to here. $5 from Justin. Thoughts on Girard in this series? Feels like he's been excellent and the best D for the Avs so far. Haven't heard you guys say much about him. I think he's been super solid. The reality is, though, the Avs, outside of the Game 1 comeback, just haven't really produced enough effective offense. And Girard hasn't produced a ton of actual points. Not that, obviously, that's a problem that falls in line behind the Avs star players not producing. I don't have any problems with Girard's game.
I think he's been a pretty steady defender on the PK. Also acknowledging the PK has not been perfect in this series. I do think he's been a bright spot there.
Yeah, especially it was a Game 1, Game 2. I don't remember. He was awesome. I love G. He's one of my soft spots. So he's here's what I'll say, and I'll say it again. When he's not there, that's when you miss him the most.
Yep.
I like that.
And that's a compliment. That is not a bad thing.
Yeah, of course.
It's not good enough offensively.
$2 from Evan that says, love seeing how far DNVR has come. Thank you very much.
We also love this.
It is pretty cool. $5 from Pin King, who says, pull a LA Dodger, move and sign him for 0 contract to help Val and keeping him on the player's health insurance.
None of those things are possible.
Yeah, I don't know that any of those conversations are even relevant, to be honest. The immediate...
This proposal isn't even allowed.
Yeah, whatever they end up doing is a bridge you cross when you get there. Right now, he's suspended and in the player assistance program. That's all we know.
Yep.
Late one here, $2 from Jacob, who says, greatest hockey player ever, and Wayne. Love you, Eric.
What was that?
He said greatest hockey player ever and Wayne.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you guys were line mates in New York. You carried him.
true.
No, L.A. Carried him in
LA,
LA.
I'm sorry.
That's his worst productive season ever. I had something to do with that.
Something to do with
I mean, you were
He had
line
an
mates.
anchor on the left side.
And his worst productive season ever was still how far over a point per game?
Oh, he was like in the hundreds.
Yeah.
You were line mates with Gretzky and Sakic.
Yep.
But
Sure,
some
sure.
pretty good dudes.
You know, like a plug-in. Like,
Come
you know,
on.
plug-in.
You were the glue.
20 games here, 20 games there. I'll take it.
And then James with another ridiculous $50 super chat, incredibly generous. Really appreciate all the work you guys do. This isn't the only pod to ever get me hooked, and I can't tell you guys how much I enjoy every pod you put out.
See, $50.
Thanks,
That's the
James.
Cancun fund.
That is definitely
what's Cancun fun? I'm scared.
Chat was big dooming the other day with their
Yeah.
super chats.
That's what I thought it was.
They said we want to go to
Early.
Cancun, and we said if they want to send us to Cancun, the super chat's got to be at least 25
Some kind of
bucks.
early vacation. I don't like it, guys.
Look, we're trying to get the Cancun fund started now.
Okay.
So that after they win the cup in June,
Yeah.
they will have had a lot of time to build up, and then we can go.
Look,
Hey.
at
We even
$25 a super chat, you can doom all you want. Those $2 ones, not
Yeah.
enough. You got to pick it up a little bit.
Hold strong, brother.
We're trying to get to
We-
Cancun, not Kansas.
Exactly.
And we even have a guy that deuces himself in his bed, too, on chat. So,
That is true. There was a
Right.
super chat about that.
yeah.
Megan's never going to come back.
But that guy's been awesome.
That's all we have for today. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us for some pretty cool conversations and some pretty serious conversations. I'm sure we didn't do a perfect job, but we did our best. So hope y'all enjoyed. We'll be back tomorrow for Game 5 with full coverage, pre-game, post-game, watch along, all of that. Hopefully it's not the last one of the season, but if it is, we'll see you there.
We all silly like the mayor.